Welcome to the TTISS reporting and making a report how-to video. We're going to begin this video on the TTISS-ON website, which is ttiss.mcmaster.ca. On the homepage of the website, there's two ways for you to enter adverse transfusion reactions. The first is through the reaction form. So you just scroll down that homepage and you can click on this picture of the form. It'll bring you to a login screen. I'm already logged in, so I don't have to enter my username and password, but you'll be prompted to do so. And then once you're here, you can edit a previous entry if you want, but we're mostly interested in creating a new record, which you click Create New Record. It gets the information up, and now you can enter all the information for this new record for the adverse reaction. Alternatively, you can enter the transfusion reaction directly into REDCap, and REDCap is a database we use to store all the information. So everything that you put on this form gets sent into REDCap anyways. Some prefer to use the form, some prefer to use REDCap. So again, when you go to REDCap and you click on that link, it'll prompt you to sign in. I'm already signed in, so I don't need to be. This is the home page, but you're going to go to the My Projects tab and then go to the TTISS, which is this one project. So this is the TTISS homepage in REDCap. For entering a new record, you're going to go over here to the left-hand side, click on Add Edit Records, and then you can click Add New Record. And then here it'll bring you can enter the same information that you would have entered on the form, and when you're finished, make sure you click Save Record. Now, if you want to take the information that you've entered for a bunch of different transfusion reactions, the only way you can do so is through REDCap. You can't do it through the TTISS website or through the form. So once you're in REDCap, you go here, also on the left-hand side, to Data Exports, Reports, and Stats. When you click on it, it might look slightly different than mine, but it should say All Data, and then you can click on Export Data. Then you're going to want to choose to export it as a CSV Microsoft Excel file with labels, because if you just export the raw data, instead of saying like the names of a component or something, it'll say 1, 2, 3, 0, like the numbers that have been used for coding. So you need to click on the labels and then click Export Data. It might take a while to export your data, depending on how many transfusion reactions, but it shouldn't be too long. And then you're going to click on this icon to download and save your data. I'm not going to click on it because that's a lot of stuff, and I already have a form made. This form is, this is what it should look like when you download all the data, and this is just for an example for the purposes of this video. So there's a few things that we need to do to make this data perfect before we can use it to make our report. So the first thing is that normally there isn't a year column. I added this because it will take a really long time to add it, or not really long, but too long for this video. But normally you won't have this year column. It'll just say date occurred. So we need to move it so that the date occurred just becomes the year. So you're going to highlight, if you click up in the corner here on this little triangle, it highlights all of your data, and then you're going to click on the data tab and then sort wherever it is for you. You click on sort. You might have to click on this drop down and then custom sort. Make sure that the My List Has Headers is checked, because otherwise it'll tell you to sort by column D instead of the name. So we're going to sort by date occurred and then push OK. And so now it should be from the earliest, which is 2013, to the latest, which whatever that'll be. So normally, again, we won't have this column, so you're going to highlight date occurred, click Insert, and it'll make a brand new column for you to write year. Now it's a little bit tedious. You want to enter the year twice so that you can, for the corresponding date occurred, highlight both of them, and then click on this little blue square and drag, and you can drag it all the way to the end of the transfusion reactions for that year. So this is why I'm talking about that it may take a while, because you have to drag for all of the ones for that year. Here's the end of the 2013s. So we stop dragging, and then we can start for 2014, which is the same thing. You're going to write 2014 twice, highlight both of them, and then drag with your little blue square. I've already done this for the sake of time, so I should go back to the top, and I'm just going to delete this year column because this is not the complete one. So now that we have a year column, which will be very helpful when we want to filter our report, we also need to make sure that the blood component or the type of component that's indicated in the reaction matches the name of the transfused product. So we don't want it to say blood component and then say IVIG, because that's a plasma derivative. So again, we're going to click on the thing in the corner and highlight everything. We're going to sort again, and we're going to sort by the transfused product or code number 1, which is this one. Click OK. And then it should be near column, so like these are the column names or numbers or letters, I guess. And it should be near column FC to save you some time. So here we go. We have type of component and then the transfused product code or name. So this is the only other really time involved thing. You just need to go through and make sure that whatever it says here matches what it says here. So down here we can see it says blood component, but then it says IVIG. Again here, blood component IVIG. So we know that's wrong. It should be plasma derivative. So you can copy and paste it so that plasma derivative is down here. Just make sure that you keep track of which ones that you're changing so that you can go back into REDCap later and change them there as well. So you don't have to do this every time if you're entering it correctly. As a reminder, the only things that are considered blood components are platelets, plasma, red blood cells, cryoprecipitate, and cryosupernatant. Everything else is a plasma derivative. So it says plasma. Plasma is actually a blood component, not a plasma derivative, so that would need to be changed. For the sake of time, right now I'm not going to change them all. I'm just going to show you how to insert pivot tables, which will help us make our reports. So the first thing that we should do is make a second sheet, and we can rename it and call it report. When you're inserting a pivot table, which I'll show you how to do in a minute, it changes as you change the variables, and you don't want it to change. You don't want to lose all the information that you've already found, so you need to copy it and paste it onto this other page. So make sure you just have a little sheet called report. We're going to highlight all the data again, and then sometimes it'll be under data, sometimes it'll be under insert, just depends on what version of Excel you're using. You're going to go to click on pivot table, and then I'm just going to click on it, and it should enter a new pivot table on a new sheet. Perfect. Sometimes it'll prompt you and ask if you want on a new sheet or a same sheet if you want on a new worksheet. So this pivot table has already been made for me because that's what my computer does, but normally it should just have nothing, or you can start with like a blank canvas so you can start making your reports. So once you have a pivot table inserted, you can pretty much find out anything you need to know about your data. And this is why we needed to have a new year column, because by date occurred, it doesn't really capture everything perfectly. So some things that we should think about: case ID is always going to be in the values corner because that's the total count. And then there's some things that we want to filter by. 3 things that you likely will want to filter by are, the year. So maybe you only want to make a report for 2016. So you'll drag year into the report filter, and then up here you can click, and let's say I want to deselect all, and I only want to look at 2016 and 2017 data. So there's only 155 records is what it's telling us. Something else we can filter by is by transfusion reactions that were actually not considered transfusion reactions. So you have to drag, and you just have to kind of like take your time looking through all the field names, finding what you want. Eventually it becomes easier to know where all the information is. Usually the type of transfusion reaction is near the bottom after the products. So it'll have all these numbers, all of these products, the measures, and then here we see type of adverse transfusion reaction. We can drag that into the filter, and we're going to take out anything that was no transfusion reaction. The last thing that I think you would want to filter by is relationship. So this is right near the bottom, the relationship of the adverse event to the transfusion. Put that into the filters, and we're going to take out the ones that are doubtfully related to transfusion or ruled out, because those aren't important to the big picture. So now we only have 142 cases that we're looking at for 2016, 2017 that meet our criteria. From here, we can drag and play around as much as we want with the kind of information that we want in our tables. So first of all, let's say we just want to know how many transfusion reactions occurred for this year. So now that we've set it as a filter, it will always have this filter even if we move it to rows. It'll still be filtered and we won't have the ones that are no transfusion reaction. So you can just drag it. Now we see that for our criteria, there were 6 acute hemolytic reactions, 1 bacterial infection, so on and so forth. Now, if I move it and I make it by year, now we see how many there were per year. But note how when I changed the variable and I dragged the field into a different area, it changed it. So this is why we need to we need to highlight the information, copy it, and then paste it into our other report sheet so that we have it for later, and then you can use it to make images or insert charts, which we'll do later. You can also always rename this into reactions on your new sheet. So now we have reactions and the total for the years. But it'll always just say row labels here in your pivot table. So now that we've done it by the number of reactions, let's say we want to do it reactions by component. We can look through our field name and go down to type of component, which is right before the first transfused product code field name. We can put the type of component into the column labels, and now we see that for our same criteria, 6 of the acute hemolytic reactions were from blood components and none from the rest. Again, we'll copy and paste this information into our other form. Something else maybe you want to look at is the reaction and the severity of the reaction. So we can go down. The severity and relationship and outcome are all near the bottom. These are all really good things that maybe you want to look at your transfusion reactions by. So we'll click on it, drag it into the column list. We'll take out the type of component. You just can drag it back to the field name. And now we can see that 5 of the acute hemolytic reactions were severe and 1 was undetermined. So we can copy and paste this information into our report sheet and keep going. One more thing that maybe you want to look at is the reactions by facility name. So we can take this out of here, we don't need it. And now we can drag in name of facility, which is right near the beginning. So we have hospital 1 in our example and hospital 3. Well, so 1 of the acute hemolytic reactions was in hospital 1, but 5 were in hospital 3. So now you can, if there's lots of hospitals in your area, then you can see which ones are having more or less transfusion reactions. So you can really go and put as much information or as little information as you want into your report. Some other things you maybe want to look at are just the type of reaction based on relationship. You can see those ones. Sometimes the type of reaction and the outcome, which should be down here. Oh man. Outcome. Maybe you want to look at the blood component by outcome instead of looking at it by the reaction. Totally up to you. You can play around with it. Just make sure that you're copying and pasting each table as you create it and putting it into this little tab called report. I also suggest putting it in the end into a Word document so that it looks nice. And then you have everything all sorted like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you have all of your different tables and it'll all look really nice. So now you have these tables, but let's say, I don't really know what these tables are saying. I want a visual. So you can also do this in Excel. If you highlight what information you're looking for, you never need to highlight grand total columns like over here or grand total rows because these aren't necessary to show up in your figures. It'll just take up 50% of your figure because it's the total. So reactions, and we're going to insert. For things like this where there's just like one-to-one, it looks really good in a pie chart. So sometimes it'll be up here in a tab called Insert, and then you can insert charts. For me, it just says charts, and we're going to go to pie, and I think 3D pie always looks really good. So now we have this 3D pie chart that we can manipulate in any way we want. I think it's best to take away this legend, and you can change the title. We're going to say adverse transfusion reactions. Now you can click on the actual figure, right click, and then you can add data labels. You can right click again and format data labels. Oh, maybe it's format. No, I think it's format data labels. Go upstairs to labels, and so now it'll show us the percent. We can ask for the category name and click OK. And so now we can see that this little chunk of the pie was 25% of our total amount of adverse transfusion reactions for 2016-2017, and that was a total of 35. You can play around with it as you like, and then you can copy and paste this into your Word document or onto another report sheet if you want to make another sheet, up to you. So this is just an example. I'm going to just minimize it so that we have room for the next example. Oops. I just got to figure out how to move it now. Should move. There we go. Some other information like this, where it's 1 to several, looks best as a as a bar graph that has bars that are side by side, so you can kind of see the difference. I think let's enter one for the type of reaction and the hospital, so we can compare the reactions by hospitals. So we're going to highlight just this stuff. We're going to leave the grand total out. Again, you can go to charts or insert whatever, and I want to do a column, a clustered column, so we can compare the two hospitals. And here we have our little bar graph. And you can edit this as you like. So maybe you want to add a title and some axis titles, which is always good for a chart. You can go to chart layout and then insert an axis title below. So this is the reaction. A vertical title, we're going to say this is the number of events. And then we can insert a chart title, and we're going to call this reactions by facility. Whatever you want. You can change the color. You can if you click on these bars and you don't like them, you can delete them. You can put them back. You can also, just like we did before, where we added data labels to the pie graph, you can add data labels to these, just so you can see the exact number. You can format the data labels so that, again, they show you maybe the category name, although it's below, so it's not necessarily necessary. Like this is good. And then you click on the blues, which is for Hospital 1, and we'll also add some data labels there. So now you can compare. There was a febrile non-hemolytic reaction only 4 times at Hospital 1, but 61 times at Hospital 3. So there's a really big market difference here that we can see, especially well with these images. So that's pretty much everything that there is to know, basically, about inserting and making a report. You can make a report with as much or as little information as you want. You can edit it as you like. If you don't like these blanks and you want to take them out, you can always filter and filter by blanks. So we don't want any blanks. We can filter by that. There we go. Completely up to you. This concludes our TTISS report how-to video. If you have any questions or concerns, you can always contact Joanne Duncan for more information. Thank you.